Hello everyone, welcome to Josh's Boxes. My name is Josh. Today I have created my character Erolith Dawnwind using the Tiny Dungeons 2nd edition system. I wanted to go over what that experience was like and how well I think Tiny Dungeons was able to capture my vision of the character of Erolith. So I've got the picture right there. We can move that out of the way and focus now on the character sheet. So let's zoom in here a little bit. So, just an overview of the character sheet. As you can see, we've got his name, Erolith Dawnwind, what type of the people he belongs to, or the wood elves, his homeland. I just put forest. His age is 102. He has green eyes, black hair. His family trait is the forest. He's a forest guide, which means the Game Master could potentially give me an advantage on a certain role if it's related to Forest Guide. The belief that I chose for him was I let my sword do the talking. That was an example of one of the beliefs that the characters are given, and I thought that described Erolith well, so I just wrote it down. I let my sword do the talking. I think it kind of gets his like gruff, direct nature across. The traits that I gave him from the list of traits were strong, which gives me advantage when I try and use brute force. Survivalist, which gives me advantage to try and forage, find water, and find and create shelter. And then tough, which gives me +2 HP. This, I think, correlates pretty well to my other characters I've made, where like his bonuses are in strength, wisdom, and constitution. So I think I was able to capture that pretty well with these 3 traits. His heritage, which is kind of like a race in other systems, but the heritage, I think heritage is a better term for it, honestly. His fae, which is just elf, basically. And the heritage trait is bow mastery, which means I get advantage to use bows. And I start with 6 HP. And then with the toughness, I get 8 HP. So I filled in 8 squares here. I don't have any experience, so I just left that blank. I also chose the heavy weapon proficiency, because I wanted him to be proficient with great swords. And then I put bow there because of the heritage trait. Then for inventory, you get 1 item. So I chose his iconic sword Stormscar, which the way that you do inventory is if it's like a big item, it takes up 3 slots and you have like 6 spaces with 3 slots each. And so 2 of my slots are filled with greatsword and then his adventure kit. And his adventure kit comes with a bedroll, flint and steel, a belt pouch, a rucksack, a lantern, an empty water skin, oil for the lantern, 50 feet of rope, rations, a torch, a cloak, and 10 gold pieces. So a pretty thorough list of adventuring gear. It captures a lot of the stuff that I want him to have, but that's I guess an overview of the character, and we'll kind of get it into my thoughts. I wish you could pick 2 weapons rather than 1 weapon with the system, because Erolith uses the bow and the greatsword. Those are like his 2 iconic items, and he even gets mastery with the bow, but the rules only let you pick 1 item, and so obviously I chose this greatsword because that's like the most iconic one, but it doesn't feel all the way like Erolith without his bow. And the fact that I'm proficient with it doesn't really mean a lot because I don't have the item. So I do start with 10 gold pieces, so maybe the Game Master would let me spend those and I could start with a bow. And I would definitely talk to the Game Master about that. But 1 weapon seems a little stringent. I would probably let people start with 2 weapons if I were running this game. That's kind of a complaint that I have. A complaint that I have with the character sheet itself is it says to draw them in this space, but the lines are really dark. So as you can see, it like kind of covers up a lot of the drawing. So it just like wasn't very convenient to draw these here because it's so dark. Same thing with like, it says to write the base HP right here, but when I wrote it, it like blended in with the letters and you had to like stare at it for a second to see how much the number was. So I just erased it and wrote it underneath instead. So those are kind of my complaints. Otherwise, I really like this system. I think all this information here is pretty easy to come up with. I obviously already knew the character, so I could just write it down. But like the idea that there's a space for their homeland, some of their appearance, what their family trait is, and a belief. I like that. I like that that's present on the character sheet, that there's some role play elements rather than just combat stats, basically. I think the trait system, rather than having a class with set abilities, is really creative, and the list is really easy to manage. I had never looked through the list before I started making this character, but I sat down, gave a quick skim through, and I saw these 3 traits and thought, hey, those are great, and I wrote them down, and it was super fast. In total, it took me 15 minutes and 52 seconds to make this character, and having never made a Tiny Dungeons 2nd edition character before, that's really fast. So it's really easy to make a character with this system. And I was able to capture the idea of Erolith fairly well. Like I said, it's just the fact that he doesn't have a bow, and there's a couple more items I would give him and stuff. But otherwise, I think there is like a good amount of simplicity here, that it's easy to make the character, but it's not so simplistic that it's just like game statistics. There's also like a good amount of like character elements here that won't necessarily like directly tie into the game. So overall, I like this system. I would love to play in a Tiny Dungeons game or run one. I think this is really like kid-friendly, super easy to make a character, really easy to get a variety of ideas across, especially since you can mix and match traits. But there are a couple complaints that I have that I've already said about like the items and stuff. So that is my review of character creation with the Tiny Dungeon 2nd edition system, trying to make my character Erolith Dawnwind. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. And until next time, ciao.